In this video, we'll solve questions 27 to 31 of IELTS Reading Academic Test 1 from Cambridge Book 17. In case you missed it, we have already solved reading passages 1 and 2, and you can find links to the videos in the description below. So let's start with reading passage 3 now. First thing, read the heading and the subheading of the passage. Here the heading is Catch a King, and the subheading is Anna Key reviews Charles Spencer's book about the hunt for King Charles II during the English Civil War of the 17th century. Let's understand this. The passage we are given is written by Anna Key. It is a review of a book by Charles Spencer, and the book is about King Charles II. Two of these names are similar, so we need to make sure that we keep this in mind. In any reading passage, when a name is mentioned for the first time, the full name is mentioned. In this case, Charles Spencer. After that, usually only the last name is mentioned. In this case, Spencer. So Charles Spencer will never be mentioned as Charles in the passage. On the other hand, King Charles II is the name of a king and is mentioned as Charles or Charles II or the King or King Charles II. Anna Key is the reviewer of the book and the writer of the passage that we are reading. Having read the heading and subheading, now I look at the question types. There are 3 question types: complete the summary or fill in the blanks with options given, yes, no, not given, and multiple choice questions. The answers to all of these are usually in the same order as the information given in the passage. Of these, the multiple choice questions are usually more time consuming. So I'll start with question numbers 27 to 31. The question type is complete the summary. The answers to this question type are usually in order. Even if they are out of order, they are very close. Also, the answers are from one part of the passage, usually from 2 to 3 paragraphs. And when options are given, the complete summary question types becomes more difficult than when options are not given. With the options given, we have to first figure out the answer from the passage and then look for the replacement or synonym of the answer from the given options. The heading above the questions is the story behind the hunt for Charles II. Hunt for is a phrasal verb which means search for. I won't read all the questions first, but I do glance through them looking for any easy location key information. In the first sentence itself, the word parliamentarian is capitalized, and then there is the number 1649. After that, there are other capitalized words, Scots and Worcester. And then there is another year mentioned, that is 1651. Keeping all this in mind, I can get a tentative location of these answers in the passage. In the passage, 1651 is mentioned first, then 1649, and then 1651 again. In the question, 1651 is after 1649. Also, within the first paragraph, I see other capitalized words from the question too: parliamentarian, Scots, and Worcester. Now that I'm sure that the answers to questions 27 to 31 will start from the first paragraph, I'll read the 27th question. Charles II's father was executed in 1949. This sentence doesn't have any blank. Charles II then formed a blank with the Scots. So what I have to find is, what did Charles II form with the Scots? Because of this mentioned before the blank, I know I'm looking for a noun. Most probably it will have a before it. In the passage, I have found almost the exact first sentence from the questions. After his father was executed by the parliamentarians in 1649. In the same sentence, the Scots are also mentioned. Let's read this sentence closely now. The young Charles II sacrificed one of the very principles his father had died for and did a deal with the Scots. I'm looking for a verb similar to form, to make something. Did a deal with the Scots means formed a deal with the Scots. The next step in this question type is to look for similar meaning words or phrases from the options. Each of the options given in the questions is an adjective followed by a noun. The adjective is describing the noun. The word I have found from the passage is deal. It is a noun. So I'll focus on the noun part of the options first. That is the second word of each of the options first. Deal means alliance. Strategic means well thought out or planned with the hope of gaining something. Charles II formed a deal or strategic alliance with the Scots. Later in the sentence in the passage, it is mentioned in return for being crowned King of Scots. So the alliance or deal was a strategic one because Charles formed this deal so that he could become the king. The answer to the 27th question is H. The option new government can be confusing. But Charles II became a king. That doesn't mean that we can say he formed a government. Let's move on to the 28th question now. In order to become King of Scots, he abandoned an important blank that was held by his father and had contributed to his father's death. The meaning of this question is that Charles II abandoned or left or gave up something so that he could become the king. And this something also contributed to or was the reason for his father's death. We have to find out what this something is that he gave up or abandoned. The keywords or phrases are King of Scots, abandoned, and father's death. In the passage, the sentence from which we got the 27th question is rather long. In that sentence, it first says, the young Charles II sacrificed one of the principles his father died for. Then the deal with Scots is mentioned. Then a religion is mentioned that Charles II accepted as the national religion, and the sentence ends with, in return for being crowned King of Scots, or in order to become the king. In the passage, sacrificed is a synonym for abandoned. Charles II sacrificed a principle. The word principle is a noun. Another word for principle could be conviction. Principle or conviction is what someone believes in or a person's beliefs. This principle should not be confused with another spelling of principle, which would refer to the main thing or maybe the school principal. The principle or conviction that Charles II abandoned or sacrificed was a religion. He chose to accept a religion as a national religion, which his father was against. The answer to the 28th question is J, religious conviction. In order to become King of Scots, he abandoned an important religious conviction that was held by his father and had contributed to his father's death. It is noteworthy that the 27th and 28th questions are in one single sentence. In the passage also, the answers are in one single sentence, but in the passage, the answer to the 28th question is before the answer to the 27th question. Moving on to the 29th question, there is a sentence without any blanks between the 28th and the 29th questions. This sentence has a capitalized word and a year. The opposing sides then met outside Worcester in 1651. So I will first check the passage to get a tentative location based on this. This is where we had found the answers to the 27th and the 28th questions. Worcester and 1651 are mentioned a little later in the passage. The opposing sides are the two sides. Faced means met. Back to the question. The battle led to a blank for the parliamentarians, and Charles had to flee for his life. Led to means what happened after something or as a result of something. So after the battle or because of the battle, what happened to the parliamentarians? And Charles had to flee or run away to save his life. Let's start reading the passage. After being comprehensively defeated by the parliamentarian army, the 21-year-old king found himself the subject of a national manhunt. The 21-year-old king is Charles II. What the sentence means is that Charles was defeated by the parliamentarian army. Manhunt means a search for a person, usually a criminal. A national manhunt means that people were searching for Charles II throughout the nation or throughout the country. The subject of refers to something or someone which is the center of or basic matter of a thought or a discussion, and in this case, it is the center of or the subject matter or the basic reason for the manhunt. The two opposing sides which fought the battle were King Charles and the parliamentarians. The passage tells us that Charles was defeated in the battle. The question does not ask us what happens to Charles after the battle. It asks us what happened to the parliamentarians. Charles was defeated, so that means parliamentarians won. In the options, we have victory mentioned. Decisive victory means a very clear victory or a comprehensive victory or victory by a large margin. Comprehensively is mentioned in the passage. The answer to the 29th question is F, decisive victory. The 30th question now. A blank was offered for Charles' capture. Capture means to catch or to arrest. In the previous sentence in the questions, we read Charles had to flee for his life, which means he had to run away to save his life. So what was offered to anyone who would catch or capture Charles II? Let's start reading the passage. This is where I had found the answer to the 29th question. In the same sentence, there are the words offered and capture. So what was offered for his capture? A huge sum was offered for his capture. Sum means money or amount or reward. Huge means large. The answer to the 30th question is B, large reward. The 31st question now. But after 6 weeks spent in hiding, he eventually managed to reach the blank of continental Europe. So having done questions 27 to 31, what we know is that Charles lost the battle, then he escaped or fled or ran away. I look for the phrase 6 weeks first. It is right after where we had found the previous answer, the 30th answer. Let's read this. Over the following 6 weeks, he managed close escapes, evade parliamentarians, seeking refuge in France. Continental Europe means the continent of Europe except for the islands. France is part of it. So continental Europe refers to France. We could say that Charles II got refuge in France. Let's look at the options given in the questions. Refuge means safety or shelter or help that a person gets when he or she is in trouble. We have safety in option D. Relative means comparative. He was comparatively safer in France, not 100% safe. He got refuge in France, so he got safety in France. The answer to the 30th question is D, relative safety. With this, we are done with question numbers 27 to 31. One thing to be noticed throughout is that all the answers we found from the passage were nouns. All the options are two words, an adjective followed by a noun. It became much easier to locate the answer if we first focused on only finding the synonym to the noun we had found while looking for the answers in the given options. With this, we have solved the first 5 questions of reading passage 3 of Cambridge Book 17 Test 1. Notice the locations of these 5 answers in the passage. And these are the locations of the answers to the rest of the questions in the same passage, which we will be solving in the forthcoming videos. To ace IELTS reading, know the question types and their features. This helps you in locating the answer. This may also help you in deciding which question type to attempt first. Identify keywords and phrases. These help you in locating the answer as well as in confirming the correct answer. When you read a question, pause and understand it properly before you start looking for the answer. This is especially important because the language of the question is usually easier than the language of the passage. Hope this video helped you. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more IELTS related content. Don't forget to check out other videos where we have solved the rest of the questions of this reading test. That's it for now. All the very best.